Hi there! In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to use Maya for the first time and what is a timeline. If you haven't opened up Maya yet, you should pause the video now and do that. If it's the first time that you've opened up Maya, your window should look similar to mine. I'm currently using the newest version of Maya 2022, and I've reset my Maya preferences to default so that we could go through all the steps together. The first time that you open Maya, you'll get this pop-up window showing the newest features of Maya. Now, I don't like to have this window and have to close it every time I open the program, so I recommend you turn it off. And you can do that by clicking on the box that says Show this at Startup, and then click OK. This is our scene, where we'll be working with different objects and animating them. You can see the grid, which is very helpful when you want to make sure that your object is placed on the ground, like for example a foot when you're animating a walk cycle. There are many different menus. Like here, we have our viewport menu with different options. We have a shelf menu with different tabs. And we have our main menu up top. This could all seem like a lot and a bit intimidating at first, but don't worry, we won't be using them all, just a small part of it, which you'll get used to in time. The first thing we should do is change our workspace from Maya Classic to Animation. You'll notice that our window has changed a little bit. We have a new panel opened at the bottom, which is called Graph Editor, and we will need it just a bit later. So now you can close it by clicking on its name. Now we're ready to open our first scene. You should have already downloaded a file which is added to this section's resources folder. If you haven't, you should do that before continuing on. Let's go to File, Open Scene, and locate the file called Assignment Section 1. It might take a bit for Maya to open a new file, so if you click on any button and nothing is happening, the file is probably still loading, so wait a few seconds longer. But right now it shouldn't take long because it's a simple scene. The more complex it gets, the more time it will take for Maya to load a scene. So we've opened a scene, and in the middle of it you should have a cube. My scene file looks a little bit different because I've already animated it in order to show you guys how the timeline works. And don't worry, I will be animating it again from scratch a bit later. So when I press play, by pressing this arrow key, you can see the animation of the cube flying across the scene. Here at the bottom is my timeline. And right now you can see this bar going across it, which is telling me how quickly my animation is moving. The timeline is a chronological set of frames. You can work with any amount of frames that you want. Currently, I'm working with a set of 48 frames, which is basically 2 seconds. Because in animation, we're usually working with a 24 frames per second video format. So, my cube flies through my scene in 48 frames. Starting from frame 1 to frame 48. I can stop the animation by pressing the ESC key or on this red square stop button. We can also see the entire animation or just a part of it by pressing the left mouse button and holding it while moving the mouse through the timeline. You can do that in any part of the timeline, moving forward or backward. This movement is also called scrubbing. Just below our timeline, we have these boxes, 2 on the left and 2 on the right. The outside boxes on either end show the entire length of our timeline, or you could say animation. So our timeline consists of 48 frames. If you want to make it longer or shorter, you can always change this number to any other. But it's good practice to start your timeline with frame 1 instead of 0, which some people do. The boxes in the middle represent the part of our timeline on which we are currently working or focusing on. It is really helpful when working with a long animation piece because it can be frustrating to work on, let's say, 200 frames at once. So, instead, use these boxes to focus on a certain part of the animation and work in sections. Currently, we're seeing 48 frames at once, which in some cases can also be a lot. So, we can focus on, let's say, the first 20 frames of it and work there. Then, when we're done, move further to the next 20 frames. We can also use this bar in the middle for the same purpose. We can move it left and right, which in the timeline would mean back and forth to the part we want. If you click and drag on any of its ends marked with these tiny squares, you can focus on a larger or smaller part of your timeline. It works the same as typing a number in the boxes would. And you can see when dragging the bar, the number in the box is also changing. Now, let's look at the timeline preferences. Here in the bottom right corner, we have a man figure running with a little gear sign. These are our preferences. Let's open them up. Our Preferences tab, as a default, opens up on our Time Slider section, where you can find a few different options for your timeline. Make sure that your frame rate is set to 24 frames per second, as well as your playback speed. If we were to leave it at play every frame, our animation would move very quickly and it would give us a bad interpretation of how things are moving. We can also set our playback speed by right-clicking in our timeline, going to Playback Speed, and selecting Real Time. These were our first steps in using Maya and its animation interface. We've covered our timeline and its preferences, and in the next lecture, we'll be going over the keyframes and we'll start animating our cube. See you guys in the next video.